Here we are on the front of our Stratus Sport by Venture. We're going to do a technical walkthrough like you would get on the data delivery whenever you purchase a unit, so you have an idea of how everything works, especially if you're a new camper. We're going to start in the front, end on the inside. If your unit differs with some of these appliances and components, we have more information as well as a deeper dive on a lot of these components in our HAPS Helpful Hacks section on the Great American RV YouTube channel. Make sure you click like, subscribe, share with all your camping friends, all that stuff too. We'll start in the front. Like I said, we have our 7-way plug. This transfers all of your lights, your blinkers, your turn signals, all of that stuff to your camper to operate that off of your towing vehicle. You're also going to have a battery charge line that's going to help charge that battery off the alternator while you're traveling down the road. Lastly, you'll have your brake controller. Your brake controller is on your vehicle. It sends a signal through that brake control wire and will activate the brakes on your camper whenever you activate the brakes on your car. Now also with your braking system, you're going to have this silver cable right here. It needs to loop where you hook the safety chains on the receiver hitch of that vehicle. That way, if anything ever fails, this cable is going to go with that vehicle. If the trailer separates, it's going to pull the pin out of that box down there and it will activate the brakes on our trailer. Now this can only happen if we have a good 12-volt battery on our trailer to power those brakes. If we don't, then that safety system is not going to operate, so we always need to make sure we're maintaining our battery properly. We also need to make sure that that pin on that breakaway box is inserted properly at all times, otherwise your brakes will be active all the time. We don't want them actually braking while we're traveling down the road unless we're hitting that pedal, of course. We're also going to have our 12-volt jack right here. That 12-volt jack has our on off for the light and up and down, very basic. Now you do have a wire, a red wire on here that's going to follow over to your battery. Generally you're going to have an inline fuse on that system. So if you find where your jack isn't working, you can check that fuse. Also check the voltage of your battery. Maybe it's not charged up enough to operate this. You can plug in that 7-way. That will help juice it up a little bit. In the end, if you still have problems with it, you can pull that black cap off the top right here, insert your crank handle that came with the unit, and manually operate that jack. Behind that, we have our dual propane tanks under this cover, operated by our dual propane regulator. A dual propane regulator has a selector switch on it. You will choose which tank you want to be your primary, have both of those tanks on. If that primary tank runs dry, you'll get a red indicator letting you know that tank is empty, and it will automatically swap over and start pulling from that secondary tank so you don't lose service while you are cooking or whatever you're using that propane for. You can swap that lever over to that secondary tank. That will become your new primary and have that other one refilled. Behind that, we have, of course, our battery storage station, that box for our battery, and we have our battery disconnect. Our battery disconnect is used when we are storing our camper. If we're storing it unplugged, we want to turn that battery disconnect off to conserve power on that battery, that when we go to hook back up, we have power for our jacks and everything. When we are plugged in, whether we're camping, storing it plugged in, whatever the case may be, that battery disconnect needs to be on so your converter system will charge that battery. We'll talk a little bit more about our converter when we go inside. Here we're on the driver's side of our unit. We have our pass-through bay right here. Not much to look at on this side. We do have our crank handle in there. Our crank handle can operate for our jack as well as our stabilizer jacks down here. That stabilizer jack is meant to just stabilize your unit. It's not going to level it out. If we want to level out our unit, we need to get those stacker blocks, put them under our tires to be able to level that unit from left to right, and purchase that at any one of our camping stores. And then you'll use your tongue jack in the front to level it from front to back. Once that's done, you bring these stabilizer jacks down to the ground. Now, the idea is you want to keep them in a nice diamond shaped form. That is when they will work the best. If you go straight up and down with them, meaning your camper is too high, those jacks will have too much weight that will bend and break. There's also a weight rating on these much less than what the weight of the camper is, so they're not meant to lift up the camper. So you just want to put a little bit of pressure on them to help stabilize that unit. In order to help you keep that diamond shaped form, you may get some more of those stacker blocks, put them under that jack when you run it down so you can keep that form. Up here we have our black tank flush and our docking station. Our black tank flush, we'll talk a little bit more when we get down to our ports for our black tank. For now, we'll go over the information on our docking station. So here on our docking station, we can see this blue lever right here. This is going to coordinate with our diagram right here. If we want to fill our tank, which is that onboard water storage, and that we want to take with us, because in the event we are going somewhere that has no water hookup, we would want to go ahead and hook our water hose up to this, and then we can fill that tank. Now, if we do have water connection wherever we're at, we go ahead and turn it to city water, and then that water will go straight to our fixtures. This vent right below it is just a vent for that fresh tank. That way that air can escape out of there. We have a quick connect right here that will provide us with that blue coil hose we can hook up right here and have a spray port with hot and cold. And then we have our 2 coax connections right here for satellite and cable. Under your docking station, just behind that stabilizer jack, you'll notice that blue line right there. That is for your fresh drain. If we want to go ahead and drain the water out of that fresh tank, we can go ahead and do that there, so we don't have any extra added weight, and we don't allow that water to become stagnant in there if we're not using it. So just before our slide out on the passenger side, you're going to notice a wastegate valve right there to be able to hook our hose up to our dump station. We're also going to have another one in the rear, so you have 2. Those 2 hoses can go into a Y pipe and then into 1 hose to our station. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about dumping. This one in particular is for our gray tank system, so keep that in mind whenever we start talking about that in the rear. We have our electric slide out right here. Motor and everything is in the underbelly. You can't see it. 12-volt operated. In the event it fails, you do have an override on the other side, right under this J-wrap sticking out of the frame. You'll see that post. You can go ahead and put an impact or a crank handle on there to be able to manually run that slide out in. All right, behind our slide out, we have our 50-amp twist lock power cord right here. That's going to be for our shore power. We put that in, turn it to the right to lock it in. Then we have that retainer ring. We want to go ahead and tighten that up. Kids running around, it'll pull out otherwise. Make sure you tighten that up on there so that doesn't happen. After we plugged it in here, then we plug it into our shore power. We don't want to plug this in second, because then you'll have some arcing on those pins, mess up that plug. So plug it in here first, then do your shore power. Also make sure your AC system is off when you're unplugging or plugging in, so we don't have any surges to that compressor system. Down here we have our other outlet for our sewage system. Once again, another gray tank as well as our black tank. Now, our gray tanks, just like our one in the front, is going to be from our sinks and our showers, so it's mainly just water, soap, so on and so forth. If we have our connection there at the campsite, we can go ahead and leave that valve open all the time, just let it drain out if we wish. Now, our black tank, however, that's coming from our toilets, so that's sewage. We have to keep the valve closed on that until we're ready to dump, because we want to keep water in that system. If we don't, the solids that we put down there will dry up, causing dry tank, and that's pretty expensive repair, so you want to avoid that. So keep that valve closed all the time, always have several gallons of water in there. Now let's go through the dump process of our black tank. Now when we're ready to dump, of course we have our hose hooked up, we pull that valve, we let everything out of there, and we just let it sit for a second, drain out. Then we hook a water hose up to that black tank flush up in the front by our docking station. That is going to lead to a jet port on the other side of that tank and help rinse and spray all that stuff down to this valve, clean it out. Once we are satisfied with flushing out our system, we turn off that black tank flush, disconnect our hose, come over here, close that black tank valve, and then we go to the inside to our toilet and we hold that pedal down, adding several gallons of fresh, clean water. Want to put several gallons in there just because there are still going to be a few little deposits in there while you're traveling down the road. That water will slosh around, knock that stuff down. We add our chemicals in to help degrade whatever might be left in there, as well as help keeping it smell nice. Beyond that, we do have some more pro tips on flushing out your black tank. If you want to go over that, you can go to our HAPS Helpful Hacks section on our YouTube playlist. Really good video on our pro tips of flushing out that black tank. Beyond that, we do have another stabilizer jack. Like I said, we'll have that on all 4 corners of our unit. On the back of our unit, we do have our Furrion backup camera system pre-wired in there if we want to upgrade, add that camera on it. That way we can see behind us while we're traveling down the road or when we're backing up, we can do that. We also have our back bumper right here with plastic caps on each end. We can go ahead and pull those caps off and store our sewer hose on there as well. Now, we're not provided with a factory supply ladder. We do need to have a ladder to be able to get up there and check that roof every 60 to 90 days. We're checking our sealant for any degrading, peeling, cracking, anything of that nature that can allow water entry into our unit, damaging it. We also need to check around all of our trim, our lights, our windows, all that stuff on the side where we have silicone. Same thing, cracking, peeling, deterioration, allowing water entry. Every 60 to 90 days, we need to check that and keep up with the maintenance on our unit. That is considered customer maintenance, customer responsibility. Manufacturers aren't going to participate in any repairs unless we are maintaining our unit properly, so stay on top of that. We also want to make sure that we clean our roof at least twice a year. And we also want to check it after we go on trips to make sure no low-lying tree limbs have poked any holes in that rubber, in which case contact our service center and we'll show you how to go through having that repaired. On the passenger side of our unit, of course, more access to our pass-through bay right here. We're also going to have our LCI tire link system in there, and it is pre-wired for that system. If we want to upgrade, get that monitor, the sensors for our tires, we can monitor that while we're traveling down the road. You're also going to see an on-off switch in there that's going to control the underglow, the little blue lights that are down at the bottom. Now here we can see we have our awning, 12-volt powered, as well as our awning lights up there, all 12-volt powered components. We can go ahead and check fuses by our breaker panel in the event that stuff's not operating, and we can check, make sure no fuses are blown. Now beyond that, our awning is mainly intended for sunshade. It's not going to keep us dry from stormy weather or anything like that. You need to roll your awning in for stuff like that. It's not going to be able to hold the water. Any wind storms, anything like that, any bad storm in general, roll that awning in. Leaving your camper for an extended period of time, roll that awning in. You don't want the insurance claim, I promise. Beyond that, we are going to have some light dew, probably a little bit of light rain, and then we're also going to have condensation from our AC that can roll onto our awning. Now that water can puddle on there, cause this awning to collapse, so anytime we roll that awning out, we have to pitch it to the front or to the rear. Now in order to do that, you have your front awning arm or the rear awning arm, both of them do the same thing. We grab it right here at this pivot point and we just pull down. That will allow the water to run off of that awning. That way it doesn't puddle up on there. When we're ready to roll that awning in, simply push this arm straight up. That'll bring the awning into a storage position and you can hit the button and roll it in. Moving down the line, we have our Fogatti water heater right here. That is a tankless water heater. It will be heated by our propane from our propane tanks and operated off of a 12-volt power. Here we have our Suburban furnace, same thing, propane to heat it, 12 volts to control it. We'll go over the operation of those two items when we hit the controls on the inside. Beyond that, we have our GFCI protected outlet right there and our cable outlet for our outdoor TV, our backer location right there. Now our GFCI protected outlet is going to be in all wet locations, including our kitchen, any outlets outside, stuff like that. We do have a main GFCI outlet on the inside that you would have to reset in the event that this stuff isn't working. Right next to our entry door, we're going to have our outdoor storage along with our 110 operated fridge right here. That 110 operated fridge, anytime we plug it in shore power, it's going to power up. It's going to do what a fridge does. It's going to get cold, it's going to freeze in there. So when we unplug it, it's going to defrost. We're going to end up having some humidity, condensation, so on and so forth in there. We need to open that fridge, defrost it out, get all the water out of there and let it air out. Reduce the risk for mold and mildew, number one, and also reduce the risk for the opportunity for damage. If we leave water in here and allow it to drain out, it can damage our wood cabinetry around it. Manufacturers aren't going to participate in that. Customer maintenance to defrost our fridge properly and clean it out. Once again, down here on the back corner, we do have another stabilizer jack. We're also going to notice a female quick connect for an LP line. If we want to get an outdoor grill to hook up, it'll feed off of those propane tanks in the front. And down here, you're also going to notice a red and blue line sticking out with valves on them. Those are our low point drains. Our low point drains are used to drain the water out of our system and prep it for winterization. If you want more information, we can find that in our owner's manual or under our video under Helpful Hacks. On our entry door, we are going to notice some friction controlled hinges, so we're going to feel some resistance on that door. That's to keep the wind from slamming that door shut, or kids, one of the two, right? So down here we have our solid steps. Anytime we operate our solid steps, we want to make sure that door is fully open so the brackets on the side doesn't scratch up our door or anything. So for our solid steps, pretty easy to store them. Put them up, make sure that blue latch latches on the frame, and we're ready to travel. When we pull them down, pull that blue latch, flip them down. Now, after we have leveled out our unit from left to right, front to back, done all that fun stuff, we want to level out our steps. Very easy to do. We go ahead, we have a silver tab on each leg, we push that tab down, and that will extend and retract those legs, and we can level out our unit. Now, some of the reasons we do that is we want to make sure we have a nice flush threshold right here on our door. That way that door will close properly, not have any gaps or anything in it. And we also want to make sure that the bottom of our door frame right here doesn't hit the frame of the steps, causing any damage right there. As we walk into our unit, of course, we have a nice big closet and pantry right there. We also have our control center right here. Our control center has 12-volt functions and everything on it. We'll go over a little bit more on that right now. All right, we have our control center here. Generic panel, you're going to have multiple tanks right here for your black. Your unit does have 2 gray tanks. So it's only going to read off of black 1 and then gray 1 and gray 2, giving you the level of those tanks. Here we have our battery level as well as our fresh tank level. That fresh tank is that onboard storage that we have in our unit that we would use in the event we don't have water hookups wherever we're at. Now, in order to use that, we'll kick on our 12-volt water pump right here, and that will supply water to our faucets. It's an on-demand pump, so you'll hear it running whenever you are operating the water. It should shut off whenever you close those faucets. Now, if you do still hear it running and none of your faucets are on, you probably want to go shut this off and investigate for any water leaks on your unit. Also, you can investigate to see if your tank is empty or not. If it's empty, you definitely want to turn it off. You don't want to burn up that pump. If you have a city water connection, leave that pump off. There's no need to have it on. Down below all of that, of course, we have our awning extend and retract. We have our awning lights as well as our interior lights for our unit. And then we have our slide out function right there, in and out. All 12-volt operated components. You can find most of the stuff, the fuses and everything for it near our breaker panel. Next to our control center, our TV backer location. With our pre-wiring for that King Connect system, if we want to add Wi-Fi to our system for wherever we go, we can do that. 110 outlet, and then of course our auxiliary satellite and TV cable coax connections right here with a little button on them and a light. Now that's important because that light represents our 12-volt boost. Our button can turn it off and on, and that 12-volt boost is used for when we're scanning for antenna channels. If we're scanning for antenna channels, we want that boost on. That way we pick up more channels in the area where we're at. If we are hooked to part cable with that coax, we want to make sure that light is off so it doesn't scramble the channels that we're getting on cable whenever we scan for them. In our living room, we do have our manual recliners. Pull that cable, they'll recline back. We also have the massaging seats with the heat option right there and our USB charging ports. Down here, we'll notice our 110 control center for all of those 110 appliances that we have, as well as our 12-volt components right here with those blade fuses. If we have issues with any of those items, we want to come check, make sure none of the breakers are tripped and none of our fuses are blown. We're also going to hear a little fan running behind there. That is our converter system. Our converter system changes 110 power to 12-volt power to charge that battery system for you whenever you're plugged in. So that's why I always tell you, turn that disconnect on when you're plugged in so that converter can keep the battery charged. The fan you're hearing is just cooling off that control center in there. Of course, we have our bunk system. Not much to talk about. We do have our USB ports under there for plug-ins. That's pretty much it with our bunk system. Here we are in the bathroom. Pretty cut and dry, hot and cold in your shower. You're also going to have a vent up here to help exhaust whenever you take a shower. You want to try to get that heat and humidity out of here. That way it'll reduce opportunity for mold and mildew. We also have our toilet down here operated by the foot pedal down here on the bottom. You push it down to flush. Only a few things that we're putting into our toilet, which goes down to our black tank, right? Sewage. When we're talking in terms of sewage, talking about number 1 and number 2, liquids and solids. Number 1 being liquids. You can just hit that pedal, flush it down the drain, no problem. Solids, we need to fill that bowl about half to 3/4 of the way with water, so we have enough water in there to actually flush those solids down to the tank and reduce opportunity for those to get clogged up. We can do that by barely pushing down on that foot pedal. It will start to fill that bowl with some water, fill it up half, 3/4 of the way, then we can go ahead and flush those solids down the drain. Beyond that, we're putting RV toilet paper only so it'll degrade properly in that system, and we're also putting our RV chemicals so it will help degrade whatever's in there and of course help it smell nice. Last thing we have to go over in here is our Fogati water heater as well as our GFCI outlet. Our water heater system right here is pretty cut and dry. Turn it off and on, hit that power button. Change between Fahrenheit and Celsius, hit that button right there. And to change our set temperature, which is going to be the temperature of our water output, we can control that with our arrows right here. On-demand system, we turn our hot water on and it will initiate, turn on the flame, and begin to heat that water. Our GFCI outlet right here is going to control all those outlets and wet locations in our kitchen, outside, anywhere where you see a label saying GFCI protected. In the event that these outlets are overloaded with too many skillets, coffee makers, or anything of that nature, this system will trip. And also if those outlets get wet, this system will trip too. So this is where basically it's like a breaker on here. You have 2 buttons, your reset button, your test button. If we hit that test button, it's going to initiate like that system is tripped and it's going to kill all those outlets. In the event that happens and your system trips, we come over here, we hit that reset button, we'll see that green light pop back on and you're good to go. If it immediately trips again, then we want to go remove some of those appliances we have on there, or make sure that none of those outlets are wet. We'll notice our dinette booth can add more sleeping space. We remove these poles and the table can sit down on these two wood pieces right here. Take our back cushions and put them down over there to add more sleeping. In our kitchen area, we have our 12-volt powered Furrion refrigerator. It is going to pull off that 12-volt battery powered system. We open our bottom fridge right here. We have our control knob for both the fridge and the freezer area. It can go from that off position, which shuts everything down, to cold to colder. And then also we have that off-grid option. Off-grid option is if we are working off a 12-volt power only, relying on our solar or our battery system, we don't have shore power, we're trying to reduce the energy that we're using off of that system, so we go to off-grid. Now, that is also going to take into account that you're not opening and closing this fridge too often, so that compressor's not going to work as hard to keep it cold. So keep that in mind whenever you use that option. Another thing to remember is these fridges do not have drain tubes, just like your outdoor fridge. Anytime it's running, it's being cold, right? And it's freezing. So we need to make sure that we're defrosting it as well when we shut that system down, get all the water out of there, wipe it all down, reduce the risk for mold and mildew, and reduce the opportunity for that water to drain out and damage our wood components around it that our manufacturers do not cover. If that happens, it is considered customer maintenance to defrost that fridge properly. Our microwave right here, 110 operated. We have that hood vent over our 3-burner stove. We have that vent outside. We need to open the tabs in order for that to actually exhaust. And we have our 3-burner stove top right here. Glass cooktop gives you extra counter space right there. This is also how it needs to be when we travel, so that glass doesn't fall down and break. When we're ready to use it, flip it up. We can turn our gas option on by turning any one of our selected knobs to that flame icon right there, and then we're going to turn our igniter until it actually lights. Once it lights, we can go ahead and turn to the selected flame that we want, and then we're ready to cook. Now we'll notice that these rings do light up red. That's to indicate that system is on and emitting gas out into the atmosphere. So it's a nice safety feature. Kids playing around, you see it turn red, we need to go turn it off. Little light switch right here can turn the oven light on, as well as our knob lights up here to add some ambiance and features. Even with that light turned off, our knobs will still turn red. Now, the thing about your gas system is anytime you pull it out of storage, more than likely you had your tanks off, the propane in your lines is going to dissipate over time, and then you're going to have air in your system. Same thing happens if you change out your propane tanks. You're going to end up with air in the system. Best thing to do is whenever you pull it out from storage or you're ready to go camping, whatever, turn those propane tanks on, come to your stovetop, and bleed the air out of the system. It's the quickest, fastest way to come and do that. Go over here and do just that. Turn it to the flame icon, light it, and let it burn for 30 to 60 seconds till you have a nice blue ring flame up here. And I always suggest doing that first before we operate things like our tankless water heater system or our furnace, and that helps eliminate any faults that might happen due to air in the lines. Our oven down here is a little bit different story. After you bleed the air out of that system, it's still going to take a little bit of time because the little hole in there is so small. Still going to take a little bit of time the first time you light it, so have patience with that. In order to light it, we're going to turn over to our flame icon just like our stovetop, but on this one we have to hold that button down in order to emit gas out of that pilot. Once we do that, we go ahead and turn that ignition knob until it lights. Once it lights, we hold it down for about 30 to 60 seconds, let that thermocouple warm up, and then we can go ahead and turn it to the desired temperature. From there, we should see that burner tube light up and we're good to go. If that pilot goes out, the burner tube didn't light up, we need to go ahead and go back to that flame icon, relight the pilot, hold it for a little bit longer, and then we go to our designated temperature. Over here we have our Go Power solar controller, and we do have solar on our unit that goes down to our battery, helps charge our battery when we have sunlight. That system is just to monitor it. It'll let you know when that system is charging. Not much else to go over there. We do have our Coleman Mach AC thermostat right here to be able to control our living room air conditioner as well as the heat for our entire system. Now we do have another thermostat in the bedroom. It's going to work the exact same way, but it's only going to have a cool option and run the AC for the bedroom. It will not run the heat for the entire unit. Only this thermostat will do that. Let's go over the operation of that now. Right here is our ceiling assembly for our Coleman Mach AC. We're going to have another one in our bedroom. It's going to work the same way. We would turn these two tabs right here and gain access to our filter, just like one that you would have at your house. We need to change that filter out when it gets dirty. We don't want to restrict airflow to our AC system. Now we're only going to feel cold air coming out of these vents right here. That is our ducted system. Anytime we run the heated system, that's going to come out of the vents in our floor. So this is where the cold air comes out. Floor is where the hot air comes out. Before we go into our bedroom, we'll notice down here we have that COLP detector. 12-volt operated safety device. We'll notice a little green light down at the bottom letting us know it's powered up. It's hardwired into our battery system. It does have a little test button right there. We need to turn that, push that button before we go camping or once a month, check and make sure that system is working. It does have an expiration stamped here on the front of it. Sometimes it's on the back. You need to check that expiration and make sure that it's still in date. Once you hit that date, you need to go ahead and have it changed out. You're also going to have a smoke alarm in here on the ceiling, just like the ones at your house, powered by that 9-volt battery. You need to check that once or twice a year and make sure that system's working and powered up as well. In our front bedroom, not much to talk about. We do have storage under the bed. We do have a second AC system with that ceiling assembly. The filter we need to change out if it gets clogged up, dirty. We also have our thermostat in here that will control just this AC. The other thermostat controls the heat and AC for our living room area. This one will control just the AC, not heat. Over here we also have our backer location for our TV, as well as our cable outlet right there that will also supply for antenna.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us, and keep watching here at Great American RV Superstores, where we bring the how-to you.